There's an old saying in business that investors prefer an A team with a B idea over a B team with an A idea. This statement shows just how important it is for you to assemble the right team to execute your business idea and build your business. In fact, it's crucial to your success. A great idea is nothing if the management team doesn't know how to bring it to market and, more importantly, doesn't know how to effectively run an organization. Whether your business will start as a one-person operation or you're planning to launch a much bigger operation right out of the gate, you'll need your business plan to make it clear that you're the right person to make it all happen. You need to show the people reading your business plan that you've assembled the right people with the right skills to create and build the business. Let me tell you a story about this. I have a good friend, Stephen, who is a venture capitalist in Calgary, Canada. He also guest teaches in an entrepreneurship program at his local university. And as a venture capitalist, he'll often get involved in deals simply because he likes the people involved. He gave me an example of two students who exemplified this belief. Sergey and Mikhail were Russian immigrants studying at the university. They were computer science majors and were pretty good at creating programs. While they were in Stephen's entrepreneurship class, they came up with an idea for a new business application. They believed it had a lot of potential, and when they shared it in class with Stephen, he said they should pursue it further. So Stephen told them a good place to start would be to show their program at a trade show. So they decided to throw themselves into finding the first customers for their product. They found a big trade show in Boston and planned to prospect customers there. Next, they built a display booth that they could transport in pieces. Okay, now that's all pretty standard, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Sergey and Mikhail were poor college students, so they had to bootstrap their way to the trade show. They couldn't afford airfare, so they hitchhiked across Canada with their booth, computers, and suitcases on their backs. They were getting rides with anyone they could. They got rides with truck drivers, hippies, tourists, you name it. When they finally got to the trade show, they set up, made a good impression, and secured some letters of interest from potential customers. The next week, Stephen asked if they'd followed up on his advice and gone to the trade show. And Sergey and Mikhail told the story to the class, and Stephen was so blown away by their tenacity that he told the class that that's exactly the entrepreneurial spirit that he wants his students to have. Well, Sergey and Mikhail, of course, got A's in the class, but even more importantly, they got an investor in their business, and that investor was Stephen. Now, I asked him why he invested in two unproven kids, and he said that Sergey and Mikhail were going to be very successful one day. He said it may not happen on that deal, but that with time, they were going to hit it big. Well, I followed up with Stephen on his company with Sergey and Mikhail, and he told me that in fact, that first business did fail. But the second company they started was a big success, and Stephen was there to cash out on the sale of the company to a tune of roughly $30 million. So, like Sergey and Mikhail, you're trying to make an impression on investors and bankers that you've got something special and different from the other people coming to them for money. You see, you want to show them that you've got the smarts, the drive, and the discipline to pull off what you say you will. Anything you can do to show evidence of this will help you get your business off the ground, and I cannot emphasize this enough. You're not only trying to show proof of your concept, you're also trying to show proof of yourself, and that's really just as important. So, the fifth section of your business plan is your opportunity to convince your audience that you and your team are the right people to make your business idea a reality. It's going to explain what the organizational structure of your business is going to be, and it explains who your management team is going to be as well. This section serves to build credibility and legitimacy for the entrepreneur or the team of entrepreneurs who are starting the business. It answers the questions of who will be running the business and why they're qualified to do so. This isn't a very complicated section, but it is one that investors and bankers take special interest in. So you want to invest a lot of time and effort into getting it right. That's because who's on your team can be just as important as what you're selling when it comes to getting the money you need to get started. So, what do you want to include in this section of your business plan? Well, let's look at the organizational structure first, because the first thing you want to do is lay out the structure of your company. And one of the best and most effective ways to do this is to create an organizational chart. An organizational chart is a very simple diagram that shows all the key roles in the organization. Organizational charts look like a stack of boxes that usually take the shape of a pyramid. There will usually be one position at the very top, and this is usually going to be the president or the chief executive officer, who is also called the CEO. Then there might be 2 or 3 boxes directly beneath the president or CEO, and these boxes would represent your executive team. They might be the vice presidents or the VPs of the company. For example, you might have a VP of finance or even a VP of manufacturing. And there might also be directors at this level. For example, you might have a director of human resources right there with the other ones. Then, underneath this level will be another level with even more boxes. This level is usually comprised of your middle management. Beneath the VP of Finance, you might find a box for a chief accountant and maybe another box for a budget analyst. And beneath the VP of Manufacturing, you might find a box for a plant superintendent and a box for a maintenance superintendent. And the box for your Director of Human Resources might be on top of 2 boxes for a training specialist and a benefits administrator. All these boxes are connected by lines that indicate who oversees whom and who answers to whom. So, just looking at the chart, it'll be clear that the plant superintendent answers to the VP of Manufacturing, and the VP of Manufacturing answers directly to the CEO. The organizational structure and management team section of your business plan should include an organizational chart like this. It should chart all the positions that are essential to carry out the day-to-day operations of running the business. But your organizational chart should go further than that. People reading your business plan are going to be very interested in exactly who is going to fill each role. So, your organizational chart should also give the specific name and basic credentials of the person who's going to fulfill that role. Remember, investors invest in people. People are reading your business plan, and they're going to look just as closely at who is running the business as they are at what your business is. So, in your organizational chart, you'll want to name the specific name of the person in all the key roles. For example, the box on your top tier might say CEO, Bill Smith, BSc, MBA. Now, this would designate that the CEO of the company is going to be Bill Smith, and he has a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Business Administration. This chart will go on until it includes all the top positions in the company. Now, it's possible that when you're first starting your business, you might just have one person assuming the responsibility for all of these roles. And you might be doing all these tasks yourself. But as your company grows, many of these things will need to be delegated to other people in order to sustain your growth. So even if you're starting the business alone, or with maybe just a few other people, it'll be a good idea to begin thinking now about what your business is going to look like as it grows over the next 5 years. You might even lay out a map of what your organizational structure looks like now, and also what it has the potential to look like during different stages of growth. Now, that's also the type of thing you might include later in your business plan in the milestone section that we're going to get to later in some of our lectures. But that's what an organizational chart looks like. It's basically a stack of boxes shaped like a pyramid. And each box will include job titles, the name of the person who's going to fill the job, and it gives a clear visual representation of the organizational structure of your business. Creating a chart like this will show that you've thought about exactly what needs to get done and who's going to do it. It'll give your audience a nice overview of the big picture of your business. They'll be able to understand quite a bit about your business quickly with just a glance at your chart. In fact, this is something that's definitely worth adding to our toolkit. So let's do that. Let's add create an organizational chart to your toolkit. This will communicate a lot about your business very quickly. It's definitely a skill you're going to need. But the next thing you have to do is really convince them that you've got the right team for the job. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you're going to get investors, customers, suppliers, or potential partners to invest in you or to believe in you, you need to convince them that your team has what it takes to weather the storms and navigate the rough seas of the entrepreneurial life. So, this part of your business plan is crucial. Here's where you do it. After you've created the organizational chart, you need to describe each department and each position in greater detail to describe what functions they serve. And you'll also need to include the background information on the people who are going to oversee these departments and be sure everything gets done. So, you'll want to give a quick description for everyone in the key positions of your business. Tell the reader about yourself and your management team. What experience do you have that'll be important to the success of your business? Maybe what skills do you have that are relevant? These are all things that people care about. You need to outline the basics, such as information about prior employment and education. But you also want to mention any special skills you might have that make you uniquely qualified to be successful. Can you demonstrate a track record of past success? Can you quantify your achievements? How many years have you been with previous companies, and how many people have you and your team managed? Did you increase revenues by a specific percentage or by a specific dollar amount? If you have, include all that in this particular section. Don't be bashful about selling yourself and your team. Have you received any awards or recognition in the industry that you're entering? You want to give hard facts that combine to tell a story of why you'll be successful. Why is your team the team to back? What do you bring to the table that will enable you to make this business happen even if the market conditions are tough or if you need to shift course very suddenly? You want to provide detailed information that's going to convince someone that you're good. But in this section, you also want to be as concise as you are convincing. You want one solid paragraph on each person. Maybe you'll include a little more for the president or the CEO. You don't want to include complete resumes for your team here. This is just a quick snapshot of the key highlights. If you're a one-person operation, then you might get away with it. It might work for you. Otherwise, just a snapshot of the highlights is going to work better. Now, you'll certainly want to include more detailed resumes of the key people in your business plan. But I'd suggest including them in the last section of the business plan, and that's in the appendix. We're going to get to that a little bit later in some future lectures. But in the organizational structure and the management team section of your business plan, you'll want detailed, concise, and extremely compelling highlights of everyone's background. Now, I see this a lot in biotech companies. Just about all of them have scientists and doctors from the top research schools or hospitals, and if you can get a Nobel Prize winner on your board, that's even better. Now, these people are on board not only for their knowledge, but also for their reputation. The entrepreneurs are hoping that having the doctor or the scientist gives them a big boost in credibility to their potential investors. So, let's say that you want to open a home healthcare business. You want to make sure you can convince people that your team has experience in the medical profession and that they understand all the complexities of insurance and reimbursement. Or you might see venture capitalists throw big money at young computer programmers from prestigious colleges. You see, anything that sends the message that you've got the talent on board boosts the chances of investors putting money into your company. Some venture capitalists believe in the potential of a team so much that they'll even rent them a house and put them in the same place together, hoping that they'll hatch the next Facebook. But experience can also be quite a calling card. Having someone on the team with a proven track record of building, growing, or running a company can also ensure investors that grown-ups are involved to keep the team on track. So far in this lecture, we've learned how to create an organizational chart, and we've learned that you need to create compelling descriptions of the key people that make up your business. The next thing you'll need to include in this section of your business plan is the ownership information and information about your business structure. Now, that may not be real exciting, but it is important. It'll communicate a lot about your business. Remember what we discussed in Lecture 5 when we learned about deciding which business structure makes the most sense for you? Well, you'll want to include that information here as well. So, what is the legal structure of your business? Did you decide to make it a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a corporation? And you want to explain who owns the company. What are the names of the owners? What percentage of the business does everyone own? How involved are they in running the business, and how do they own the business? Do they own stock? Or is it a general or limited partnership? You see, this is important to investors because they want to see what's left for them to own. How are the shares divided up? What will their investment get them? If the company is already diluted with a lot of stocks, investors may look for other deals to invest in. You want to make it really clear that it's worth their while to be with your company. And once you've outlined how this is going to work, you'll have included everything you need to include in this part of your business plan. And as I said before, it's not a particularly complicated part of the business plan, but it's an important part to get right. So, I want to spend the rest of the lecture pointing out some of the common mistakes people make in this section. And I want to share a few tips with you on how to make the management team section of your business plan as strong as you can make it. First, it's a good idea to start with yourself. You want to take some time and really think about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are as well. Write these strengths and weaknesses down on paper and have a few people read them over and point out things about yourself that maybe you don't even realize. And please ask them to be honest. For example, you might be a great salesperson, you might have a lot of enthusiasm, you might be engaging, and you might even be very, very persuasive. But when it comes down to understanding the financials or the nuts and bolts of how to get things done, you might not have the patience that others have. Or you might understand how to make a business work, but you lack the communication skills to get people to understand what you're trying to do and why it's important. You see, you have to acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses and think about how you're going to deal with them, because everyone has things that they're good at, and everyone also has things that they feel less confident about. Pretending this isn't true is not the way to navigate this. And many entrepreneurs struggle with this. They're just a little bit too confident that they can take on anything. And sometimes this will get them into a bind. Now, confidence is great and it's important, but don't let it be your weakness. And please watch out for hubris. As you're thinking about your management team, think about what your weaknesses are and then hire people that have the skills that you don't have. If you're enthusiastic and persuasive, but maybe you struggle with the nuts and bolts, then hire someone or get a partner with someone who loves to take care of the nuts and bolts. People with those skills are out there and they'd love to work with you and help your business out. Now, this seems like a very simple lesson, but it's way too often ignored. You see it time and time again. Two great communicators join forces to start a business. Or two brilliant engineers with little experience in sales or marketing team up, and then, no surprise, the company completely fails. When you look at people who were keenly aware of their strengths and weaknesses and who made smart decisions because of it, that's when you see successful businesses. Just consider a few famous founding teams of great companies. Let's think about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs couldn't program a computer or engineer products as well as others, but he knew what his customers would respond to, and he recognized what made a product insanely great. But Steve Wozniak was a brilliant electronics engineer and computer programmer. Throughout his career, Jobs relied on great engineers and programmers who could design the products. And he also hired top leaders from other companies to help build the business. You see, Jobs had an appreciation for what the other professionals could do, and he relied on them to bring his vision to life. That allowed him to focus on his strengths. You see, Jobs was the entrepreneurial leader, and that's an important point. New endeavors need leadership. They need someone to point the way and guide others to bring that vision into the world. And that's what entrepreneurs do. Steve Jobs did this with Apple, he did it with Next Computers, and he did it with Pixar. Now, Bill Gates is another good example of how entrepreneurs play to their strengths and work with others who complement them. Gates was not as artistic as Jobs, but he was more business savvy. The Windows operating system and the applications that went with it are very functional tools that have provided the platform for everything we do in the digital world. Now, Gates, unlike Jobs, he was more of a builder. He built the digital infrastructure that runs most of the programs on our computers. Through savvy decision-making and strategy, he created a company that dominated the software landscape. But he didn't do this alone. While Gates was a world-class computer programmer, his boyhood friend, Paul Allen, was behind a lot of the development of the products. Gates understood programming and could communicate clearly what needed done, and he could also contribute to the programming when needed. But his key contribution to Microsoft was setting the vision of where the company should go. Gates made things happen in a way that most programmers aren't capable of doing. And keep in mind that Gates was still a technology person. Getting on stage and giving the pep talks was not part of his key skill set. For that, he turned to his college friend, Steve Ballmer. Now, Steve Ballmer was a cheerleader extraordinaire for Microsoft. I challenge you to find anyone who was more excited and proud of their company than Steve Ballmer. His keynote speeches to the Microsoft community are legendary. In fact, he looks like an old-time preacher at a tent revival, breaking into a sweat as he works the stage and fires up his audience. Now, it also shows Gates' genius in building a company. You see, he recognized what he needed, and he was willing to let Ballmer take the stage to sell the company. You can do the same thing with your entrepreneurial projects. By consciously recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, you can be a step ahead of other competitors in your market. Here's another thing to keep in mind as you're building your management team. Many people have a view that entrepreneurs are lone wolves, going it alone, putting their shoulder to the grindstone, and making it happen against all odds. Well, while determination and dedication are definitely traits that'll help you succeed as an entrepreneur, going it alone is not the way to go. You have a much better chance of making your business work if you actively seek the help of others. Get help from people who've started successful businesses in the past. You can get help from mentors at the Small Business Administration, or you can get help from people within the industry that you're working to be a part of. Now, this bigger lesson of entrepreneurship plays into how you build your management team and how you might think about this section of your business plan. Because one excellent way to lend credibility to your management team is to build an unpaid board of directors or an advisory board. Now, you can create a board of directors and invite people who are successful entrepreneurs, industry leaders, or business managers to sit on your board. Then you can consult with them for advice. These people might not have the time to come on as full-time employees, or you might not have the money to pay them, but they're willing, or you can convince them to sit on your board and help you think through challenges as they come along. If you create a board like this and make them part of your business, then you can also mention them in your business plan, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. Building a board of directors or an advisory panel comprised of people with a good track record allows you to borrow their reputation to gain credibility for yourself. You see, it shows that you've got access to people who can help the business be successful. Now, following those little tips can save your business. There are a few things that can go drastically wrong when building your management team as well. So let me give you some warnings. We talked a little bit about the hazards of starting a business with friends and family when we talked about choosing a business structure. There's a similar cautionary tale here. Many people go into business with friends or family members. Now, this makes sense because they're usually people that you trust. But it's easy to assume that they have a high skill level, much more than they might actually have, and they may not actually fit the company very well. So, running a business can require a very different skill set, and many people learn this the hard way, and that's usually after they've hired those friends and family. And unless you take care to be very clear about the boundaries between friendship and work, you may find your friendship in ruins over workplace disagreements. In this lecture, we looked at the organizational structure and the management team section of your business plan. Though it's not the most complicated part of your business plan, it's a section that really has a big impact on how people will receive your business. It happens so often that people buy into a business or support a business because they believe in the people as much as they believe in the business idea. As an entrepreneur, it's your goal to build something. And many times, you're trying to build something that's oftentimes too big or that requires too many different skills to go it alone. So, it might help to think about it this way. Maybe your goal isn't to build a company. Maybe your goal is to build a team who can build a company. Now, this sounds much more manageable, and thinking about it this way just might make the difference between being successful and being one of the 7 out of 10 businesses that fail.